Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Total Biscuit, and I'm aiming an alpha strike that may accidentally kill my friends at Magicka Wizard Wars. This is the alpha version that was released on early access, and this footage is from a build actually a few days before that, so you may actually see some improvements in the early access version. What is it? Well, they promised a Magicka MOBA. I'm not entirely sure if I agree with the assessment of it, but it is a PvP-focused version of Magicka in a different engine. Yes, one that actually works. It's in the BitSquid engine, and it is focused on the notion of team-based combat. So what are we looking at right now? Well, we're looking at the customization that can be applied to your wizard. At the moment, it's rather limited. You can customize your robe, your stabby weapon, as you can see here, and also your staff. Now, all of these items have different advantages and disadvantages. Each and every one of them has a downside of some description, and this is how they're hoping to actually balance the bloody thing. At the moment, you have to pay to get access to the game. I'm not entirely sure if they intend to keep it that way. I'm going to have to make the assumption that they are, which is an interesting idea, considering that most of these kinds of games are based firmly on progression. In the case of Magicka Wizard Wars, there is definitely currency involved, as you can see up to the top right there, but we're not entirely sure what it means for the progression system. The game is currently labeled free to play on Steam, but if you want to get into the early access, you have to actually buy one of the packs. There's a starter wizard pack, a founder wizard pack, and an impressive founder pack, ranging from $13 to $50. So it will be free to play. We just don't really know what kind of model it's going to take in that respect. I do like the notion that these weapons actually have advantages and disadvantages. It means that you can create a specific class within this, as well as having a system which is hopefully a little bit self-balancing. If you look at the stuff that I've got right here, it's kind of designed to move fast, and as a result, I do suffer in certain areas, like my health, for instance. It's also very easy to create a class that is good at a particular kind of element, similar to the original Magicka, which hopefully you've all played by now, or at least have some idea of how it works thanks to the billions of videos that are on my channel about it. You get to combine 8 different elements together in order to create spells. And in this case, you can equip gear, which will actually allow you to either buff or debuff particular elements. So you can have someone in your party that's got a lot of items that are designed to make their healing more effective, but they're going to suffer in some other area as a direct result of that. So, that's the loadout system as it currently stands. Obviously, it's still an alpha, so there's an awful lot more to go. You can see our party up to the top, and it even breaks down their specialties for the most part there. It doesn't tell you everything, but it does say, hey, this guy is really strong in a certain element. So you see the second guy along, who you should recognize, Mr. Northern Lion, very good on the healing. Very good on the healing, but his shields are dreadful. And then you've got a lightning specialist over to the side right there. I'm pretty good on the shields, and I'm also fairly fast as well. It would be nice to see maybe a little bit more information to the top right there. Seeing just one element buff is maybe not good enough, but it does at least give you an idea of what your party is capable of at a glance. So let's get into the game and see how it actually plays. Alright, prepare for chaos. It is Magicka after all. So, you would recognize, I suppose, the game mode as something of a Dominion-style thing, if you happen to play League of Legends. It's capture points, basically. It's domination, and you'll have ticket drain based on that. Currently, if you lose all 3 points, you also lose the ability to respawn. So if you don't get one back, that instantly ends the match. And frankly, that can happen pretty damn fast, as we discovered right here. This is us playing on the European server against people that have actually played the alpha. This was like the first time that we played. So we got a little bit wrecked. But regardless, what you're seeing is probably fairly familiar to you if you happen to be a Magicka player. Admittedly, you will notice that the game engine is noticeably better in terms of its graphical fidelity and in terms of its stability as well. BitSquid versus whatever godforsaken unholy thing that Magicka was running on is just far better. The other thing you might notice is that this time around it can actually only combine 3 elements instead of 5. This was designed to make the system a little bit simpler, but also to allow you to conjure spells quicker in combat. Here's the thing, Magicka actually had a PvP mode, and I have seen Magicka played in PvP, and it was really quite complex. There's a lot of stuff that you can do there. Casting shields and the right kind of spells, especially bearing in mind that aside from your custom spells, there were like 20 different Magickas that you could otherwise summon. as well as being able to create resistance shields to one of 8 different elements, was pretty damn tough. Yeah, it was a difficult thing to do. Required a lot of skill. This time around, they have changed that a little, just a little, by making the Magickas easier to use. The more damage that you do, the more Magicka energy you are able to charge up, which will allow you to summon one of 4 different Magickas down at the bottom right there. So they're like hotkey abilities in League of Legends or Dota. But you've also got your custom spell combinations as well, which can result in all manner of different things that are also very situational. You might not want to be using lightning unless your opponent happens to be wet, for instance. There's all sorts of different ideas that you can combo together. And of course, spells interact with your teammates. Sometimes in a rather amusing, explosive way. So you may notice there's friendly fire in this game. Yeah, because getting rid of friendly fire would actually just destroy the essence of what Magicka is, as far as I am concerned. There is friendly fire, you can blow up your friends, and it's hilarious. It's really as simple as that. I absolutely adored Magicka when it came out, but let's be entirely frank, Magicka did have some performance problems on various machines, and sometimes it just flat out didn't work, which was not particularly good at all. This time around, it looks like what they've done is said, alright, let's remake it in a different engine, and let's focus the notion on PvP, and let's streamline it a little, but not too much. Yeah? I'm pretty happy with the way that they've streamlined the game. I think it's fair and reasonable. Getting rid of the ability to combo 5 elements instead of 3 is fine, because let's be honest, comboing 5 elements never really resulted in anything incredible, with the exception, of course, of Arse Mines. I do really miss the Arse Mines when it comes down to the original Magicka, but you can still combo some very amusing stuff together. And what I will say is the game is just ridiculously and joyously chaotic. It's absurdly chaotic. It's actually skill-based, very much so. There's a lot of Twitch skill, a lot of knowledge involved in actually playing a good game of Magicka Wizard Wars, but the amount of sheer chaos and nonsense that goes on does make it very enjoyable. And the sense of humor is kind of still there in the form of the actual gameplay. That's where most of the laughs came from in Magicka. Yes, Magicka did have some pretty cool writing and some nice references, but the big laughs from Magicka came from the mishaps of you and your friends. And that, to me, is something that is personified within Magicka Wizard Wars. The problem I've got with this is the idea that they're trying to market themselves as a MOBA. It's something they've mentioned numerous times. I think they need to get away from that idea. And I think the reason they need to get away from that is because you don't want to be compared to League of Legends. The game is nothing like League of Legends. It's kind of a class of its own, really. It's a Twitch-based magical combat arena game. Tibumkak. See, it rolls right off the tongue. It's absolutely ideal. I wouldn't compare this to League because I think you just get these unreasonable expectations from a lot of people. Expectations of item progression within the game, which doesn't happen. There is no shop, yeah? The complexity of the gameplay doesn't come from the map, which is what I would say League of Legends and Dota very much have. Dota in particular. There's a huge amount of complexity and depth in that map that a lot of people just starting off simply do not understand. That isn't here. The complexity is in the combat. Yeah? Combat is far more complex than you'd expect from games like that because you have to know combinations, you have to do them on the fly. You've got to be very quick. I mean, if you realize what your opponent's doing, which you can by looking at the kind of elements that are floating around and also the tendencies of your opponent. You might see someone that is tending towards using a particular kind of spell, maybe because their items buff it. So you can, at that point, think, all right, I can create protection against this, or I know how to create barriers against this kind of stuff, using shields at the right time so they don't accidentally kill your friends. There's a huge amount of complexity involved in that. And as far as I'm concerned, it's really enjoyable. I think it's some of the most enjoyable PvP combat I've had. I only played a little bit of PvP in Magicka, but this time around, it seems like they've taken the concepts from the Magicka PvP, turned it into its own game in a better engine, and have been able to take the time to actually do refinements on it. And the game benefits so much from that. It's a fast-paced, chaotic arena game. And it's great, because it's got so much uniqueness to it. There just isn't anything else out there quite like it. Convincing people to play it for a length of time could be tricky. I mean, it really comes down, I suppose, to just how cool the items are. I think you could really drive that progression with awesome looking items with stuff that just gets progressively more ridiculous. Just what we saw from the DLC in the original Magicka. And it was fantastic because you can have all sorts of things like the Day of the Tentacle robes, Half-Life related stuff and things like that. If they can do that, then I think they're in a really strong spot. The problem is, of course, trying to keep that stuff balanced in the process. I think make your character look more awesome is a compelling model that hasn't really been explored all that much. It exists within MMOs, for instance. You pursue gear more often than not for how cool it looks, as opposed to what kind of stats it has on it. I'm not saying that people ignore the stats, absolutely not, but how cool it looks is a big factor in whether or not people want a certain piece of gear. In progression-based multiplayer games, that stuff hasn't been explored to its fullest potential yet, I think. It has been done. Team Fortress 2, of course, is a prime example of that, and the ability to unlock camos is something that a lot of FPS seem to do. But I think you could go even further than that with a game like this and just have that progression, as well as the microtransactions tied in to the idea of just looking more awesome the more games you play. Let's be honest, some people might not find that compelling enough, and that's what worries me kind of for the long term. Things like the showdown effect had a similar problem in the sense that people wanted a reason to keep playing, which is an infuriating attitude, I've got to say. I really hate it, and it's something that's come along with modern games over the past few years, where people feel the need to get inside this kind of Skinner box, I suppose, where they're constantly given little treats because they happen to play. I mean, it's even kind of a participation award. You don't have to win to get them, which is absurd in my honest opinion. I don't like those kind of mechanics, and I don't think they're necessary when a game's good enough. A game like Showdown Effect had some progression, but it was really, really limited. And I liked the Showdown Effect. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic deathmatch game. Really, really great, but unfortunately, it seems like that was not the case with the majority of people, and that game really didn't end up being all that popular. I'm hoping Magicka Wizard Wars can get past that without having to get to the point where you get upgrades to stats and things like that. I like the idea that it could just be based purely on skill, and you could have specializations that also have certain disadvantages. So everything would, in theory, be fairly balanced based on the kind of spells that you are using, and there would be a constant kind of metagame shifting going on between the notion that somebody had a really powerful spell and as a direct result was doing really well, and then people learn how to counter that spell and suddenly they do worse. Ultimately, my impressions of Magicka Wizard Wars so far is that it's an absolute riot. I'm looking forward to playing it in the early access. I think it's going to need more game modes. I don't think this 3-point capture mode is really good enough to keep people playing. It will need options, especially considering they don't have the ultimate map. You play Dota, that map, or you play League of Legends Summoner's Rift, that map exists in its current form because it is the strongest map that's pretty much ever been built for a game. And it's got so much going for it. There isn't anything going for this map. It's just a map. There are no other special features here whatsoever, as you can, I think, pretty clearly see as I get slaughtered by imps. Yes, you can die to creeps very easily in this game. So, they're going to need more game modes, and they're going to need more items. This map is not going to be enough to keep people interested. But if they're able to do that, I think that this game is going to be absolutely fantastic, riotous fun to play, especially with friends. There's going to be a lot of griefing, there's going to be a lot of frustration in pubs, so that's something they do need to try and figure out, especially considering that the game is more often than not based around the idea that, yes, you can hurt or kill your friends, but if you have that happening in pub matchmaking a lot, it's going to be very, very frustrating. Do they have a way of dealing with that? Currently, it doesn't seem like they do, but we'll see. There you go, folks. A look at Magicka Wizard Wars. Early access on Steam for $13. It will be free to play on launch. My name has been Total Biscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.